I so love this section of the training. It's hard work, just gonna lay that out there. But it pays dividends because stories are the emotional connection to your ideal clients. When you tell a story, people live vicariously through it. Like in science, they've proved that when somebody's telling a story and you're taking an MRI of the person that's listening to the story, the parts of their brain that light up are the parts that also light up if they were actually doing the thing themselves. So it's, as you can imagine, it's like a highway right into their heart. So stories are really, really important. The problem is you don't want to tell just any story. That's not effective. We want to tell stories that are on brand, that help illustrate our brand, that help show people what we're all about, what we believe, all those good things. So I have some story prompts to get you started to do that on a way that's in alignment with your archetype. Also remember that these stories don't necessarily have to be about you as a person. You can tell a story about your client, about your dog, about I don't know, George Washington. You can tell stories about other people too, or other things. You don't necessarily have to always be the star of your story. Sometimes that's easier, but sometimes not. So use your best judgment. So here are some prompts that fit your archetype well. How death or loss made you better. And that doesn't necessarily need to be the death of a person. It can be the death of an idea, the death of a belief, how maybe like a perception you had about the world was destroyed when something happened, that type of thing. And how that made space for something better. Coming face to face with suffering or death. There's a typo there. Sorry, guys. And what you did about it, or what you saw in the suffering or death, what you learned from it. Changing how you do things, especially by going against what's popular when you realize that the popular stuff isn't working. So finding your own way beyond the status quo. Abrupt loss or destruction of a person or life to make way for something new, similar to the first one. The path to accepting our own villains or the harm that we do. This could be really interesting. So by leading by example, so showing people that you are in touch with your shadow side, the side of you that does hurt people and is destructive, and what you learn from it and how you manage it and how you deal with it. You know, do you feed it cookies? Kind of deal. That can be a really interesting story because most people aren't willing to look their shadow side in the face and acknowledge it. They're so busy ignoring it or pushing it down that they don't ever bring it up to the surface. The path to claiming your own power, so going from powerless to full of power and owning it and doing something about it. A story about never fitting in or being an outsider and why it's better, how it's improved your life, can be really interesting for your archetype as well. Now you can even emulate more Netflix research. You're welcome. So you can emulate your stories that you tell. And again, through emails, blog posts, interviews, all the places that you're talking to a human, you should be telling a story. So you might want to have, a collection of like 10 stories that you refer back to all the time. So here's some famous ones that you can pull cues from or prompts. Robin Hood going against a big authority to help people who are less fortunate. Footloose, doing what you believe, even if it goes against what's accepted in society. The idea, or the movie, the plot of Sleeping Beauty is really interesting because there's a sense of like death and then rebirth. So the Sleeping Beauty goes to sleep for a really long time, as does the rest of the castle, and then rebirth after the Studley prince gives her a kiss. Also, movies like The Godfather, so like mob movies where people are creating their own set of rules to live by. Also a great inspiration for your brand. So fill out that archetype story docket in the guidebook as you're coming up with your own, or to come up with your own stories. And then also people have been asking me about like what they should share on social media based on their archetype. So I came up with some like more perhaps practical or more specific examples of content types that really fit your archetype. So rants, exposés, or a shocking story work really well. Any stories, links, or articles that trigger the surprise and anger emotions in people. You could host an Ask Me Anything where you'd open the kimono and show people everything you have. Metaphorically, of course. Instagram stories or live videos that are an own unfiltered view of your life or thoughts, so not needing to be super polished or put together, just being who you are unapologetically. You could expose corruption, greed, or bias in your industry. Help people get rid of negative thoughts, people, or systems. So, like, help people divorce themselves from things that are no longer serving them. You can also discredit popular, antiquated, or expected methods or language. Super powerful for your archetype. And then I was thinking, if you were to hold a retreat somewhere, and I was trying to think of a place that would fit your brand archetype, all I could think of was just someplace that no one has ever held one before. So someplace completely off the wall, off the beaten path, and maybe kind of bizarre. That would be the place that you would want to hold your retreat. All right, so have fun. There, like I said, there's the archetype story docket that you're going to want to brainstorm through, and then there's also a visibility recipe. So you can use the content type ideas that I give you here as inspiration for the visibility recipe, where you're figuring out where, how often, and what you're going to post. And you can also use your brand values, your top 3 brand values, 1, 2, or 3 brand values, to dictate some of your content that way. So you could write infinite variations of posts about one of your brand values. For example, if your brand value is fighting the man, you could write a bajillion posts on how people can fight the establishment, whatever that means, in your industry for your clients. So have fun with those. Kill it, rock it, do it, and I'll see you in the next video.